Hello, my name is Dr. Erica Ligons, licensed clinical psychologist and founder and CEO of Crush That Exam, which is a company where we help fabulous people like yourselves to overcome licensing exams such as the EPPP, to put it behind them forever so that they can move forward with their careers. And so I just want to start off by telling you all a little bit about who I am and why I became an EPPP coach. And then we're going to get into our topic, which is all about how to stay grounded and manage anxiety and stress during the whole entire preparation process for this exam. So, first of all, I've been licensed, thankfully, for almost 10 years now. And I was able to take my test right after graduate school while I was still on postdoc. But it wasn't an easy journey to start off with. Because of my history of neurodivergence, I have ADHD. I never did well on any standardized test ever in my life up until this one. And also, I had a boatload of test anxiety. I mean, I would become physically sick every time I tried to study. I had so much avoidance behaviors. I was overwhelmed. I had no guidance, no support, no coach, no mentor, no nothing. But thankfully, I was able to prepare for the exam and I successfully passed on my first try with a score of 659. And for those who are new to this process, you only need a 500 to pass. And so I was very grateful that I was able to pass the test pretty easily, despite having a mountain of challenges and literally next to zero support. And so after I passed the test, I just felt in my heart like I just wanted to help other people because I saw how much I struggled to just get into the study process. I think that's probably a little bit paralysis by analysis because I didn't know what to do and no one was there to guide me. So I wanted to guide and help others. And so I started sort of informally helping people around me. And then over time, people started encouraging me to actually become a coach. And so in 2019, I ended up doing so. I just kind of put it out there that I was going to start coaching people. And I started doing it. And sure enough, it took off. And so now it's been several years. And I've had the pleasure of helping so many people just like me with tons of different barriers to overcome the exam. I just literally got an email today from a former client who passed the test last year and they had a beautiful wedding and were able to just enjoy this amazing, event in their life without this test hanging over their head. And so because I've been now obviously licensed, I have the Crush That exam where we help people to pass the test. And I also have a solo private practice where I have a small caseload of clients that I'm able to provide therapy to, which is a blast being able to work for myself, design my own schedule, decide who I work with, when I work with them. It has been such a joy. So that's enough about me. I want to hear a little bit from the crowd. Would anyone like to, you could raise your hand and just tell me a little bit about what your experience has been like so far with the EPPP, if you've taken it before or if you're new to this process. I just want to get a gauge, if a couple people would like to share. Or you can also drop in the comments as well if you're a little shy to talk.
I could share.
Okay, who is that?
It's Nilon.
Oh,
I
Nila,
could
there we
share.
go.
Yeah, I could
Hello.
share. Um, oh my God, where do I start? Same thing, ADHD. So I had to kind of I noticed that just for standardized tests, I never did well. And it was always a struggle, but I always planned for it. But this test was different. But I graduated in 22, so in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm thinking there wasn't much happening. They were trying to figure out how we're going to do. I was trying to get postdoc done. By the time I turn around, it's 2024 going in 2025. So
Yeah.
I just say to myself, you know what? Let me just go see what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
No preparation. I just wanted to go, I'll be honest. And yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got humbled really quick. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, I need to prepare. And from that moment on, I it was a struggle in terms of just lining up. getting a schedule in place. That was
Mm-hmm.
that I found it hard. And then while you're at it, it's just sustaining, like you have study time, but then you have quality time. You have quality study time versus just study time. And I found I was having study time, but not quality study time.
Yeah.
So that took some change and some tweaking. And I'm getting to the place now where I feel like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back. But it's still the the nerves. I remember sitting there, and even if I wasn't prepared, I just wanted to see how it was. I remember the nerves, just the anxiety that
Yeah.
came forth just from the experience. And yeah, I don't know how to explain it. It was different sitting there and
Mm-hmm.
seeing those questions. And some of them you're like, I know this, but I can't remember this. Or
Yep.
the way the question was asked, you just yeah, so that was kind of my experience with it.
Thank you for sharing that. And Neela, let me tell you, and this is for everyone, so many people find themselves in your exact position. They're trying to study for the test during a time where things are very hectic in their personal life, or maybe, well, in this case, it was COVID. It was something that was so beyond even your control, right? But they're trying to make this work and they're stressed and they're overwhelmed and the process gets delayed and then they find themselves just feeling pressure to just kind of just go in there and do it. And unfortunately, what can end up happening is we get spooked pretty bad by the test itself and how well, I'm just going to move my microphone over here, and how challenging it is, right? And it can set off a lot of negative and unhelpful beliefs about the test and our ability to pass it. And so I just wanted to validate that your experience. We've definitely, I have coached so many people who are in the same exact position. So I just want to leave you with some hope that even though you had that first attempt that, didn't go your way, you can definitely still come back from this as long as you have the right support and the right plan and mindset the next time. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that today. I'd like to hear from at least one other person about oh, so someone has commented. Thank you, Samantha. So you've taken the test quite a few times, um, and you've done study groups, tutoring, this, that, and the other. It kind of feels like you've done it all. It feels like. Recently had an evaluation done for accommodations and still need to schedule some time. Yes, again, I've worked with a lot of people in your position as well who have taken the test several times. They feel like they've done it all. They don't know what's missing. They don't know why it's not working. And that's one of the things I love most about being a coach is being able to illuminate for people and help them to find what is the missing piece. In 6 years of doing this, I have never, ever, 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 ever had a situation where I talk with someone and I was left scratching my head wondering why they hadn't passed. I can always spot the missing link, which is a good thing because what that proves is that this test is passable and I believe everyone can pass it. We just got to figure out what the missing link is. So thank you so much for sharing that, Samantha. And please don't give up hope. Please, please, please. If you go to crush.exam.com on the testimonials page, you're going to see people we've worked with who have passed on their fifth try, their 10th try, their 16th try. So go over there, get inspired, and hear from people who were in your spot because if they can do it, you can do it. And then we have Amanda who also has taken it sometimes. And I know I hear you. You feel tired, you feel exhausted. Um, Absolutely. And Samantha, you just said literally considering doing a career change. No, don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Please don't leave. Trust me. Let's get our hands on you. We'll get you straightened out. So let's get into talking about this test and let's start with the mindset, right? So I want to hear from people. If you could drop in the comments, what are some things that you've heard about the test? Or that you believe after your experience, like this test is biased, or this test is, you have to take it 10 times to pass it. Drop in the comments for me some things that you've heard.
I have one. This is Claudia, by the way. I
Okay. Uh-huh.
English isn't my first language. Um, I spoke Spanish growing up, but also I think part of it is cultural and like the high context that we're looking for, like, oh, they mean this or that. And
Mhm.
that's not, I think it's like the understanding like what they're asking instead of
Yes.
like me interpreting it or whatever.
Absolutely. Yes. Language things. And let me tell you, we have tons of people we work with language things. In fact, thinking of a few people I worked with who didn't grow up in the US and spoke other languages and never even took standardized tests growing up, and they still passed the exam. And so I say that to you, Claudia, because I want you to know that although, yes, it is more challenging to take a test in your non-native language, absolutely. And I'm bilingual myself. I speak Spanish as a second language. So I understand your experience. I'm just on the opposite, where English is my native and Spanish is my non-native. And I remember being in psychology classes in Spanish and being like, whoa, trying to, keep up. It isn't easy, but it is possible. What are some other things that you all have heard? The questions are asking for the best option, and it's hard because most of the answers are correct, but you still have to discern the most correct. That's very true. Also, a lot of content is not applicable to some areas I'm familiar with and what I use in my day to day. Yes, there is a lot on there that is stuff that's from the past, stuff you learned in undergrad, stuff that you haven't looked at in quite some time. So, here's the thing. Everything starts with the way you look at this test and what you tell yourself about this test. So, what I always want people to know is we got to be careful who we're talking to, okay? Because sometimes when we're on Reddit threads and on social media, there's a lot of urban legends that go on about the test, a lot of misinformation, a lot of unhelpful information that gets swirled around because there's no formalized support around this. So it's a lot of people in the dark trying to figure it out. And, sometimes we're hearing from people who maybe did pass, but they had their own singular experience. And so they can't really help us as much. And so, how many of you, just by show of hands, find yourself on the Reddit threads and on social media trying to get information about this test and what it takes to pass? Amanda said, I've been in the threads. You've been deep in there, huh? I have in the past, but not recently. Okay. So Neelan, you keep your distance. That's probably a good thing from it. Okay. So here's the thing that can be really tricky. So sometimes you're going to hear these outlier stories where people have passed very easily. Maybe they studied hardly at all. And you hear that and you think, oh, well, maybe I can do the same thing. And then unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out. Or we hear sometimes really difficult stories, but we don't get all of the context. And so it's a lot of information coming at us, but it's not all helpful. So I want to encourage everyone to be mindful about not comparing your journey to other people in terms of time frame, how it all unfolds, how you need to go about studying, because everybody's so different. Some are neurotypical, some are not. People have children, some people don't. Some people are doing this later in life. Some people are coming straight out of school. Everybody's experiences are so different. And if you compare yourself to other people and you take in too much information from this person, that person, from everyone, then it really can have you in a stressed out, overwhelmed, confused place. I'm sure we've all heard of the term like information overload, right? And so we want to be mindful of what we're taking in and how we're perceiving this exam based on what we're hearing from other people. So, what I want you to walk away with today is the idea that this test is passable for everyone. And why do I feel so confident in saying that? Because the very people who, on paper, bilingual people, ADHD or neurodivergent people, older people, people of color, those are most of the people I work with. And when I get done with them, 75% or more of the time, they're passing. And so please know that it is passable. Yes, people of certain groups might need to put in a little more effort. Yes, it may take them a little bit longer to study, but it is passable. How does it feel to hear that? I want to hear from you all to hear that it's passable, especially coming from a diverse group of people that I have in front of me.
I feel better about it. I actually have some friends that pass, so I do know that it's
Good.
passable, and I studied with them, which sucks, but they were on their own personal journey too. So I think part of it is like stressors, but so I guess I'm managing that better. But yeah, it it does feel like okay, you can pass this. Like it's just you got to find a way.
Yeah, it's about finding the missing link. And thank you for sharing that, Claudia. And Samantha, I appreciate your thoughts too. Like I'm skeptical because of my own experience. Um, and I want you to know, Samantha, you can pass this exam too. I know it doesn't feel like that, but trust me, I have had got on the call with people where they're sobbing. Their whole world feels like it's just crashing down because of this exam. And now, not only did we help them to pass the test, but then we turned around and helped them to now start their own practice. So, one day I hope we get to talk after this because I know that you can pass it. And for you, Omar, as well, I know it's been some time since you've been out of school, but we work with people all the time who are like school psychologists. Maybe they go down that road, they do that for a long time, and then they come back to do the clinical part. And so, even though, yes, Omar, it will take time to kind of get your gears going again, to get back in school mode, and you might have to go at a more gentle pace. This is true because it's been some time. You can still do it. I've literally helped people who were literally in their 60s, their grandparents, they did this as a second career to pass this test. And I know you can too. So, in my ability. Emily says, I'm capable in my clinical practice, but do not feel confident in my test taking ability. We're going to work on those thoughts. So, let's start talking about the benefits of taking the exam. Because when you have had difficulty with passing it, or you see the negative stuff you hear the disparities in pass rates between, different groups of people, it is very hard to hold a positive view of this test. But one of the things I enjoy is watching people's perceptions of the test change as they go through my coaching program. So, one of the things, of course, we know it's going to lead to, a career with autonomy, better earning potential, more opportunities, financial security. So we know all of the benefits of passing, but there are benefits of actually having to study for it. So even though I think it was Samantha that said some of the stuff on the test I don't use in my day-to-day practice, it still is really good to brush up on all of this content because the more you get familiar with the content, you'll actually start to see how much of it does show up in your clinical work to some degree. And I've had so many of my coaching clients who will say, you know, my clients are respecting me even more because I'm giving them more psychoeducation. I'm giving them more tips and strategies because I'm brushing up on some of these things that I learned a few years ago. And they're getting accolades from their clients, like, because their clients are then looking at them like, wow, you really know your stuff. And then that also makes them feel more confident. So even before they've passed the test, they're already seeing the benefits of having to go through this process. Also, not only do they learn more knowledge about the field and can apply it to their clinical work in some capacity, but also there's a really great personal development aspect that comes along with this because studying for this test really does require a lot of time and energy. And so you have to be very clear with your boundaries. You have to have clear intentions with your time management. And so it's also really helpful for personal growth, which I'm going to talk more about at the end. So I want people to start to associate this exam. And I know that's hard if you've had difficulty with passing, but even people I've worked with who have failed, 10 times or more will walk away feeling like, you know what, that was actually really helpful for me in the long run. So I want you to start making it a regular practice to intentionally think about the positive aspects of having to study for this test. Because the more you do that, the better headspace you're going to be in. Versus if you're walking around all the time, like, I hate this test is stupid. Why do I have to do this? This is terrible. This is ridiculous. Why are they doing this to me? Then you can't access any of the benefits and you just stay in that really yucky place. Tell me, peoples, what are you thinking? I know this is tricky because you're like, oh, how am I supposed to think positive about this test? But tell me what you all are thinking. Would anyone like to share? Don't be shy.
I guess I could.
Hmm.
I'm part of a study group, or I should say I was. It was three of us, and I would say we've been studying for about 4 months.
Hmm.
And there was some anxiety on my part to take the next step because I'm like, I remember kind of like the slap I got when I tried to do it without preparation. So, but the other people went and they passed. So there's that
Hmm.
piece in me now, like I need to do it. And but what happened if I don't? Right. So that these are the thoughts that kind of ruminate within.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not one of those who feel I can't. I
Hmm.
believe I could. Yeah, I know I could. I think it's just a matter of the right the right space, the right time, the right exam, so to speak, the right because they're all different. They're different versions. It's just I just feel like everything aligns and it works out. And if it doesn't, it just doesn't. So for me, that's really what's going on is the anxiety of having the other two went ahead and be successful, and now you're the one left. So there's
Yeah.
that pressure to go do it because you're getting those questions. When are you taking it? When are you taking it? And the last piece I learned is that the people who have passed really quickly forget what it was like when they were in your shoe. And that's the
Yeah.
other piece that kind of sucks.
And it can feel very lonely studying when other people in your immediate circle, and that's one of the reasons why, when I coach people, we do it in community because when you're the person who has failed a few times, you feel bad. But then when you join a community and people around you have failed as well, or maybe it's been many years since they graduated and they've never attempted and they just feel very behind, but then you come into a community where you're talking to people who are in the same boat as you, it normalizes and validates everything and it helps you to feel a lot less alone. And Nila, we're going to talk in a moment about expectations, or not expectations, pressures, including some of what you were talking about. Um, and we're also going to talk more about reframing our thoughts too. So, I want to talk a little bit about expectations because I think one of the things that sets people off on a trajectory that is not going in the path that they want with this process is just not having enough basic information about studying. And so then it just makes the whole process so much more stressful and anxiety provoking. So, for example, experts recommend that you should be spending 3 to 400 hours prepping for this exam. And that's quality hours. I think someone was talking earlier about quality versus quantity, right? 3 to 400 quality hours of studying. And so for the average person, that's going to be over the span of 3 to 6 months. So if you break that down by a weekly basis, we're talking 15 to 20 hours a week. I mean, it's like a part-time job. And so it is a big time commitment and it does take a lot out of you. Tell me if you drop in the comments if you knew that's how much you're supposed to study for this test. Okay, Neelan, yes, that's good. You were aware. Okay, Samantha knew. Amanda didn't know. Very common. I didn't know either until I don't even know how I stumbled across that information. Heard about 200 hours. Yep, it needs to be a bit more. And again, when you think about things like if your English is your second language or you're neurodivergent or maybe you're a little older or you have test anxiety, you're going to need to probably do closer to that 400 mark to really feel ready and to feel confident. So that's the first thing, is having realistic expectations about how much time you have to put in this. Also, like guys, it's a lot of work and it's slow and it takes time to really learn it all. And so I think that's another thing that perpetuates feelings of anxiety and self-criticism and shame because people are coming into this and they're wanting to just quickly get it and learn it and figure it all out. And when it doesn't go as quickly as they want, then they're feeling very frustrated and very exasperated with the process. So just having realistic expectations of how long you need to study for this is really, really important. All right, let's continue. So people have a lot of, external pressures that they're dealing with. And then there's also the internal pressure. So, Neelan, you brought this up around that social piece, feeling behind, right? Feeling that other people are moving forward. Maybe you're seeing people getting promoted or they're starting their own practices and things like that. And you're like, oh, when is it going to be my turn? Um, Oh, wait, actually, I wanted to say one other thing about external pressures. Sometimes we might have milestones coming up, maybe big personal events or milestone birthdays or transitions coming up, like we want to buy a home or we want to move or something like that. And those kind of pressures are creating a lot of stress and anxiety. But that internal part too of just wanting to be done, wanting to be up with our peers, all of those feelings are so strong and it can create a lot of feelings of guilt and shame when we see our peers moving forward without us. And let me tell you something, this is something that so many of my coaching clients experience and why they feel so grateful when they have a community to study with people who have graduated. Like sometimes in a group coaching session, for example, someone might be expressing, Neelan, exactly what you were expressing. Like, man, it's been 5 years since I graduated and I'm so sad. I feel so behind. And then they find out someone in the same group, it's been 7 or 8 years since they graduated. And so they're like, okay, well, if they're still here and they're not giving up, it really helps a lot to give us that fuel to keep going. So how do you all cope with that feeling of feeling behind? How do you help yourself? What do you tell yourselves when those negative thoughts come in around like, man, why am I still doing this? Oh, I wish I was done with this. Does anyone want to share something that they find helpful? You can share in the comments or you can talk out loud, whatever's more comfortable. Thank you, Emily. You're still learning to find that. Yes. And that's okay. We're going to talk about it. Does anybody else have something that they find that's helpful? While you guys are thinking about this, one of the things when I help people to finally pass the test, they'll say, while they're going through it, it feels awful. They're like, oh, this is taking forever. I wish I was farther ahead. But a lot of the time after the fact, they're like, you know what? I needed to go through that. I needed for my process to be the length of time that it was because it taught me A, B, and C, or it helped me in this way or that way. And so I'll even ask people like, is there anything you would do differently or anything? And a lot of times they'll say, you know what, no, because I had to go through my process. Um, Let me see. Omar said, inspired to take the test. That motivation helps me. That's a challenge. I got inspired by a dream. Oh, that's beautiful, Omar. Yes, we have to get inspired. We have to still see the benefit of passing on the other side. So let's talk about thoughts, everybody. It's because there's a lot of cognitive distortions that people have as they're going through this process. So let's play a little fun game where I'm going to throw out some thoughts and you're going to guess what cognitive distortion this is. So I will never pass. What type of distortion is that? Anybody take a guess?
You said
Catastrophe?
what type of distortion you said it would be?
Hmm? Yeah,
Are
I
we
will.
talking are we talking from the perspective of Gestalt? Or
Yes.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, like what type of distortion? So some people said catastrophizing.
Um
I think so. Or also maybe fortune telling too, right? Like we're predicting the future, but also catastrophizing. I could see that one too. Let me throw out another one to you. Sometimes I'll be working with someone and they'll do really well on a practice exam, like solid score, and I'll tell them, this is great, you did wonderful. And they'll be like, well, but maybe just it was an easy test. Maybe that's why I did so well.
Minimizing.
Exactly. Absolutely. Now, what about, well, I've never done well on any other standardized tests, so I'm probably not going to do well on this one. That's one I had, by the way.
Prophesying or whatever. No, that's wrong.
What did you say?
Prophesying?
Yeah, I think this one would be like generalizing, right? Like because of past experiences didn't go well, we assume this one won't either, right? So we base it off of that past to now. Um Also another really common one that I hear from people, oh, it just slipped me. Um oh, it just slipped past me. But the point of this is I want you all to be starting to look at your thoughts. I have all my coaching clients do an exercise where they write down the thoughts that they have about the test, about themselves, and they have to actually look at them to see where the distortions are and then start to reframe them. Because if you're just allowing these thoughts to run through your mind without checking them and analyzing them and pulling them apart, they're just going to keep you down. Would anyone like to throw out a negative thought they have, and maybe we can guess um, what type of distortion it is?
I should have passed by now.
Ooh, that's a good one. So what distortion is that? Anyone guess? Sounds like a should statement, right? The shoulds or the musts. I also see Emily says it's easier for everyone to pass than me. What do we think that one is? Anyone guess? That one, I think maybe, I don't know if mind reading is the right one. Arbitrary influence. Yeah, can you explain, Elon?
I feel, like in social psych where they're talking about arbitrary influence, where you conclude that I can't do something. There's no way somebody like me could do that. And then there's the emotional one where people are like, other people pass, I don't. I was thinking of it from that perspective. Um, Not so much personalizing it, but just seeing it from the context of like making that final conclusion that you can't do something.
Mm.
I was seeing it from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Emily, for sharing that one because it's such a common one. It really is. And there's a lot of versions of that one. Like things are easier for people. I had to believe things are always harder for me. So that's a really, really common one. So what are we going to do with these thoughts, guys, right? So besides writing them down, literally naming what distortion it is, and then coming up with a new belief, for example, we might say, like in my situation, I have failed and done poorly at so many tests, but I told myself, you know what? Yes, it's true. I have had difficulty passing or doing well on standardized tests in the past. So I honored that truth, but then I came up with the second half of the belief that was more hopeful. I said to myself, yeah, I haven't done well, but this time I'm studying something that's related to my field or something where I feel more confident in. And that really helped me to honor the past because that was the truth that I hadn't done well, but then reframing it for myself. Emily, you might say something to yourself like, maybe some people got there a little faster than me, but with the right tools and the right support and plan, I can get there too, for example. Um, or the I'll never pass. That was another one I had too. Um, oh, I like that, Nelan. It wasn't my time, but my time is coming. That's really nice. I would tell myself too, like, what if I never pass? And I would say to myself, well, you know, I can't tell what the future's going to be, but what I can do is focus on the present and having the right plan and the right structure and the right support to get there. And so I really want you all to sit down and do that exercise with yourself because we tell our clients to do this stuff. So we got to do it too. And by doing that, it really helps ourselves um to just totally change the way we see things and how we feel about the exam. So when it comes to study time, this is so important what I'm about to tell you. You have got to come up with a ritual that you do before and after study time. Because if you're someone, especially who has failed several times, or the process has been delayed for you, every time you sit down to study, your mind is immediately going to start pumping out all of those thoughts. Raise your hand or drop in the comments if you find yourself flooded with negative thoughts and emotions every single time you sit down to study. Samantha's like, right here. I would become physically sick. That's how intense mine were. So, what I did to counterbalance that is I came up with a little ritual that was like 2 minutes long where I would take a moment and I would do some breath work, some calming breaths. I would do a short visualization exercise, imagining myself when I passed the exam, some life milestones that I wanted to achieve. I would do a body scan because I held my anxiety so much in my body. So I would do that body scan really quickly and just release all the tension. And then I would sit down and I would go over a few of my top mantras. And I would actually speak them aloud because I had to drown out the negative thoughts that were pumping through my head. And I would not start a study session until I had done that little ritual. So for you, you might have another ritual. You might do some stretching. You might do prayer. You might do visualization as well. You might do a combo of a few different things. I have some coaching clients where they play an uplifting song. I know in our community, we have a playlist of inspirational songs. And I know sometimes I play them just for myself to have to pump up my day if I've got to do something difficult. And so you can find some songs that you can play as you're getting set up that just make you feel motivated. Maybe taking a moment to reflect on a past experience that you had that was really difficult that you overcame, right? We have to be very proactive in how we manage our stress and anxiety around this test. You don't want to just sit there and let your anxiety and your mind run wild. Be proactive, not just when you're sitting down to study, but even as you end the study session. Because during the study session, you are going to have thoughts, still intrusive thoughts coming at you. You're going to have days where you're overwhelmed by the amount of content you have to learn, or maybe you're studying a really challenging domain that day and the information just feels like it's not sinking in. So you want to make sure you end your study session also with something uplifting, repeating your mantras. Maybe you got to pray again. I don't know, but doing something to cap your end of your study session to leave yourself in a grounded, hopeful, confident place. Okay? And the other thing I recommend is just not sitting by yourself. We do co-working groups called parallel sessions where we work together doing body doubling. It's great for neurodivergent people, but we get on camera, everybody's muted, but we're studying together. Timer goes off for 25 minutes. We work, then we get 5-minute breaks. You can turn your camera off, stretch, dance, whatever you got to do, get some water, and then we come back and we hit it again and we do that for a period of time. And again, just not studying in isolation also really helps to manage the anxiety, especially as you get to know people and you kind of know what they're going through and you see them still showing up. It really does something. So I'm wondering what could be your pre and post study ritual? Who wants to share something you could do when you sit down to study to get yourself in the right headspace? Not only just like shaking off the negative thoughts about the test, but also just helping yourself to transition from like work to study time or whatever it is. Who would like to share? Oh, Samantha, maybe the music. Yeah, get yourself a little playlist. And Emily, you said too that when you get a few questions wrong in a row on a test, you start feeling the spiraling, right? Same thing. Stop, breathe. We have to ground and regulate. Don't keep going question to question if you're in a spirally place. Pause, regroup through the breathing, the body work, and then keep going. You know? Yeah, Emily, the body doubling, oh my God. I mean, I've seen people go from just feeling so awful during study sessions, overwhelmed, reading the same paragraph over and over again, can't make any progress, to suddenly finding themselves making progress because they're just not alone with their thoughts. I love it. All right, so let's get to a couple more things, okay? let's talk about some other stuff that can really help you to manage anxiety and stress around this process. Making sure that you have all the tools you need is really important. So, some people really, really, really benefit. In fact, I think 65 to 70% of my coaching clients utilize accommodations and or and or medication during their exams to help manage anxiety. There is nothing wrong with having extra time or having a private room or those types of test day accommodations to support yourself. If you have a history of test anxiety, neurodivergence, medical conditions, whatever it is that would make it so that you need more time, learning disabilities, whatever, don't be scared to apply for accommodations. If you know you struggle with performance anxiety and you get overwhelmed, why are we walking into the test just like grinning and bearing it through it? Don't do that. There are tons of medications that people can take just on their test day or maybe the couple days leading up. They're in and out of your system within a few hours, very low side effects, non-addictive, nothing like that, just to calm you a little bit, slow your breathing down, so your heart rate down, keep you from sweating excessively, just to manage and take the edge off. You know, it's surprising actually how often I work with mental health professionals who have a lot of internalized stigma and ableism and are walking around with so much should thinking. I shouldn't need that. I should be able to get through the test without it. I should be able to finish within the normal amount of time. I shouldn't have to rely on support. I don't want to make people think I needed their help or I needed a handout to pass this test. I'm telling you right now, you need to let all of that go. I have worked with so many amazing clinicians who are rock stars in this field doing amazing work, and many of them use accommodations or medication on their test day, and it's totally fine. So please do not hold yourself back from considering it, and don't wait until you're 2 weeks before your exam. You're not, you haven't been doing well on your tests, practice test, you're feeling discouraged, time is against the clock, and now you're trying to hurry up and get a prescription. Just get it ahead of time. And if you don't use it, cool. If you don't find that you need it, but I say everybody should just get I mean, I'm not saying everybody should get a prescription, but anybody who thinks they might could benefit, get the prescription. You might use it, you might not, but at least having it is really helpful. And so let's see here. The last thing I want to conclude with is remember that passing this test has very little to do with just learning the content. So much of this is about you being in a place within yourself, having the self-worth, the inner confidence, and the self-regulation skills, and the perseverance and the discipline. This is really a personal journey. And so I always tell people if you're walking into this just trying to get a passing score, you're missing the opportunity for a lot of personal growth. And the personal growth, in many cases, is going to be absolutely necessary in order for you to be able to pass this test. So I encourage everyone to be in therapy during this process because sometimes when you're doing those practice exam questions, you think the issue is that the questions are just worded weird and you can't figure out if it's A or it's B, but really it could be stuff from your childhood, self-worth issues, past trauma or difficulties in school or past failures or negative voices from people who didn't believe in you coming up and shaking your confidence. But you're just not consciously aware that that's what's coming up for you. And so this process, I just can't stress enough, is so much deeper than you think it is. So please make sure that you are taking care of your personal and emotional well-being during this process because that could be the number one thing that is really holding you back and it just has nothing to do with the test. So that was a lot of information. As we wind down for today, I just want to check in on everyone. Any final thought or comment as we wrap up?
I think it's good to feel like you're not the only person because most time you sit in your living room or at home and you by yourself late at night studying and you feel like you're the only person going through this and everybody else has passed and you just and it's that thought that keeps coming and then so having other people that have similar experiences, I think it kind of normalized the process a bit.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else have a final thought? Oh, Amanda says, thank you for your time. Very helpful to learn to take a step back. Yes, I'm standing right in the middle of it right now and being reminded to chill is very helpful. Thank you. Yeah. So I really appreciate everyone coming today. I hope that you took some information with you that's going to be, you know, helpful tools that you can take with you in your journey. Hang around for a moment. I have some other announcements to give you, but I just want to say thank you so much for attending this talk today about stress management and EPPP. And again, I truly believe that you can crush it too.